Hey, Eva, welcome to the Beyond Jaws podcast. Are you ready to talk about angel sharks?
I am, of course.
Wonderful.
Well, welcome. We want to welcome everyone to today's episode of the Beyond Jaws podcast. We're beyond excited to have a real angel on our show with Eva Myers. Eva's a conservation biologist from Germany, but was actually raised in South America. For the past 10 years, she's been involved in various policy, research, and conservation projects across the globe. She has extensive experience as a project manager, field researcher, and in international nature and biodiversity conservation, as well as in environmental policy. Eva has worked as a consultant for the United Nations Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, CMS for short, and the CMS Sharks Memorandum of Understanding. For the past 6 years, she served as a program management officer for the UN Environmental Program, coordinating an intergovernmental platform addressing conservation and sustainable use of migratory water birds. Well, that's interesting, a little different than angel sharks. She co-founded the Angel Shark Project, which is a collaboration between various institutions, including the Leibniz Institute for the Analysis of Biodiversity Change, where she's based now, which aims to safeguard the future of critically endangered angel sharks. Eva is also a member of the IUCN Shark Specialist Group, the Northern European Group, and the German Elasmobranch Association. And I'd also like to add on a personal note, Eva was super helpful in providing me a lot of information and discussions on angel sharks for that section of the recent Sharks the World book. She was really helpful with that stuff. Schooling-wise, she did a Bachelor's of Science degree in marine biology at the University of San Francisco de Quito and the Galapagos Institute of Arts and Sciences in the Galapagos in Ecuador. She also has a BSc in biology from the University of Bonn, where she also has an MSc, and she's currently a PhD candidate at the University of Bonn. With that, Eva, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good. Well,
that's quite the accomplishments.
I know, she's amazing accomplishments. We always like to start off with the Eva. Like, how did you get interested in the biology and the marine sciences and angel sharks in particular? How'd that all come about?
Yeah, by absolute coincidence, obviously. Like everything in my life, it has just happened somehow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know where to start, but was definitely not planning to work on angel sharks. I didn't even know what angel sharks were until I started working with them. I had absolutely no clue. I don't know, as you know, I was born in Germany and then raised in Bolivia, so very far away from the ocean, had not really a close relationship to anything ocean-like. I wanted to become an archaeologist, like my dad. Wow. Studied photography first before I went into any science work. And it was actually in Ecuador where during my studies as the applied biology, I started with that. I really didn't know where to go, whether that was going to be geography or botany or ocean. But I started this new career path, marine ecology, and I just signed up for it. And kind of that's where the whole thing began rolling. It was an absolutely fantastic field of studies. They took us to a semester by the sea, they called it. Yeah. So we traveled along the Ecuadorian coast to learn about all the marine ecosystems and ended up in the Galapagos Islands. And that's where, obviously, I got infected.
Well, backing up for a minute, you lived around, besides, you said Bolivia and Ecuador. Did you live in any other, you lived in a few countries in South America when you were young, correct? That had to have been a fast.
Bolivia first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was so Bolivia first because of my parents. They had my dad is an archaeologist and my mom an ethnologist, so they were doing excavations there in the Andes. Wow. And so since we were children, they took us there in their different projects. And after that, my mom got a job in Ecuador, where I went to live with her. Later on, my brother as well. My dad returned to Germany. And after that, my mom, it was funny because I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go into this whole biology conservation field. It was an interest I had, but I had a bit more interest in arts. So I took the money that I got from my bachelor's from my parents and went to live to Brazil and study photography. My parents didn't talk to me for a year while I was there, angry.
That had to be an
photography
amazing
it was.
experience. That had to be an amazing experience. Obviously German was your first language, but then you obviously must have picked up Spanish and Portuguese, I assume, from Brazil. And then at what point did you actually learn English in there? I'm just because you obviously must speak. How many languages do you speak actually now?
I think German, Spanish, yeah, 4.
Four. Okay.
And so
Okay.
German, Spanish, Portuguese, English, and I understand a bit of French.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I actually, in Ecuador, I went to a British school. So
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't want to go to a German school because I felt like I already knew how to speak German.
Mm.
And I also wasn't that interested in the German culture. So I felt like, let's try something else. And I went to a British school there. So that's where
Okay.
English is, quite helpful.
Okay.
My understanding, when you do schooling in Germany, you learn English quite a bit as well, right? I've met a few Germans lately, and their English is pretty good, and I've just been like, oh, how did your English get so good? And they were just like, we take it in school, throughout primary and elementary school, and then even in high school. So did you take, like, was it difficult to move not only from Germany to Ecuador, where you're speaking Spanish, and then go to a British a British school? Was it difficult to learn all those different languages, or did you already have some function of English back from home?
I think it wasn't really in Germany that I learned English. It was more in Bolivia when I was growing
Okay.
up there, because you watch all the movies in English. And
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, so you had the subtitles there, but all the movies were in English. So somehow that English, and there's a lot of American influence there as well.
Yep.
You had it was easy to pick up.
Right.
Okay.
More so than in Germany, actually.
So what movies helped you get familiar with English?
Don't ask.
Because we had
things like that.
Well, we had a guest that was on that learned English because he was Portuguese from Portugal, and he learned English through Godzilla movies. That's how he learned English. Yeah.
Joe, do you know Joe? I don't know if you know Joe Romero. Joe Romero. He's from Portugal, or he's from the Azores, and when he came to the U.S. as a teenager, he'd watch Godzilla movies, and that's how he learned how to speak English.
I learned Portuguese in Brazil watching The Simpsons in Portuguese, which sounds so awkward.
Simpsons.
But that's how I learned Portuguese. That plus the carnival got me speaking. So.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. That was awesome. I love it.
That's an archive moment.
Yeah, we're gonna clip that. We're gonna clip
that one. That'll show up somewhere. They're learning that there. Did you? Well, it's kind of interesting. I don't. Do you know Pancho in Chile? Do you know Pancho? You must know Pancho.
Yeah,
Francisco?
not personally, but I know he is.
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah. Well, he actually grew up in Chile, learning. He went to the German schools there when he was in Chile. We went to some of the better, because where he lived in the South, they learned. So he actually, his second language was German, and he later on picked up English. I didn't know if you had any experience. If you had any experience with any other, I don't know. I'm sure you've been to Chile at some point, but possibly. But I don't know if you had any similar experience like that, where the schools were a little different. But anyway, I thought that was it. That was interesting. So.
I was in Bolivia. I went to German school as well. So there's a huge German community as well. Historically, lots of Germans fled to South America.
Right.
So you didn't see The Simpsons in German, I guess.
I've seen it in German, in Portuguese, in Spanish, and in English.
Oh wow. That's amazing. So you grow up, you learn all these different languages, and then you were living in Ecuador, and then you were going to school there, and you got interested in doing marine biology, and you spent time out in the Galapagos.
Yes. So part of that semester by the sea that I mentioned before was they have this institute from the university there, and they took us there to live there and to have classes there at the institute. And that's what got me into sharks.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's like every young person's dream, to like go someplace like the Galapagos or, the Great Barrier Reef or someplace to like go to school early on. That is amazing. So you're out there. How did you get interested? What caught your attention about sharks when you were in the Galapagos?
So back then, there wasn't really much research going on in the Galapagos yet, believe it or not, on sharks. And the park and the uni, they wanted to establish this shark research program, but it was still, it was still in development, everything there. And we got assigned classes. So everybody had to choose like a project they would do over a certain period of time and then present that back to class. And most people took, I don't know, sea lions or the cetaceans. And I don't know why. I just said, well, nobody took sharks, so I took sharks. I was like, okay, well, I've never seen sharks before, but pretty scared of sharks too, but let's try and see. So I went to talk to some of the guys that were taking people from kind of the ferries from one island to the other, and asked them if I could go with them, and they would also organize snorkeling tours. So it took me on this boat for free, luckily, and then said, okay, now everybody's going to jump in here into the water and go snorkeling, and she's the shark scientist, so you follow her. And it's like, I have never seen a shark before, so I jumped in there and phew, first spin here, another one there.
That's awesome.
Really, really spooky. But,
wow!
Just
and did everybody start asking like, oh, did they start asking like, oh, what shark's that? What shark's that? Asking to identify the sharks, and you're thinking like, I don't know what these things are yet.
Luckily, no, because I think everybody was as scared as I was. So everybody was kind of feeling like, how do I survive here now? But it was, pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh man. So you did that there. You got your degree there, and then at what point did you didn't obviously stay there? At what point did you decide to go back to Germany, and how'd that all come about?
Well, it wasn't really a decision. It was more things that happen in life. So from Galapagos, I met someone who then dragged me to Australia for a year. And I spent a year there. And while visiting back home in Germany, my family, I then decided to stay. Well, I came here and I decided to stay in Europe, perhaps. I still had my flat in Ecuador. I started to enroll in the university in Spain because I thought maybe Spain could be nice too. And they had 2 degrees for marine biology. That was it. And in Germany, there wasn't any marine stuff either. You had to go through standard biology and then you become a marine biologist. But I really wanted to. I was already like, okay, I think I really want this.
Yeah.
And then I got pregnant.
Things happen.
Things happen.
Life happens. Yeah.
So life happens. And so I stayed in Germany where I have my family as well to support me.
Okay.
And and I got here into university.
Okay.
It's really interesting. You talk a lot about, just moving, going to Australia, Ecuador, Galapagos, and back to Germany, and then maybe to Spain and things like that. Did you always have this sense of you wanted to live in other places around the world? And what attracted you to certain places over others? Other than life things, but mostly like, it seems like you have this ability. It's like, well, maybe I'll try Spain, or Australia was nice. And maybe what gives you that sense of adventure to explore different places to live?
I think it's maybe the way that I grew up. We were never for a long time in one place. So we've been moving around quite a lot. I just remember moving all the time.
Right.
And I don't know. I just feel like I really don't like living in Germany. For me, that's not like, I don't feel like I belong here. I do value a few things that I have here, but I love exploring new places, new people, new cultures. I love the different way, the lifestyles, I guess. I think maybe it's a certain lifestyle that I'm looking for, and that I want to experience myself.
Right.
Different people, getting inspiration from other people as well.
Now, this fascinates me because my daughter, who's 16, she wants to do the same thing. She wants to travel the world and work with animals and things like that. And I'm very much a homebody. I like my travel, but I like staying here in Canada and so forth. But what are like the challenges of going and living in different places?
Well, first of all, it brings, if you're not a person that adapts easily, then you have those challenges. I have dragged my family with me to a few places since I'm a mother. So they do suffer under that as well.
Right.
Recently lived a year in Portugal as well. And it's getting, I think it's connecting to the people, especially if you don't speak the language, which is why I do try to get the language thing going, because it does connect you much better to the place, and you actually get there and you understand the people and you can communicate with people. So the language barrier is a big one. I see that with my partner, who doesn't not connect as easily when he doesn't speak the languages. And I guess also just getting used to having the flexibility and getting used to things working differently, like paperwork, administrative work, get your phone bill or your internet going, or you're registering for the whatever not, Those are challenges, I guess, but they're, from my perspective, minor for what you're getting out of the whole new experience and new place.
Yeah, definitely. The challenges do not outweigh the fun and the adventure in you, which is great to hear. I was just always curious, because I'm always looking to give advice to my daughter to find out what she can expect going to different places. So thank you.
Just
appreciate that.
Send her out. The more the better.
Well, you probably have a nervous dad there, like wondering what his daughter's up to now when she's traveling.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of the things I didn't even tell my parents until now.
Yeah.
So it's better that
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
Well, great. Well, I'm glad we got you on the show now. You can share with everybody all the crazy things.
Surely not.
Yeah, sure things are best kept quiet. So you got out. So you went back there and you started doing. You did an MSc there at Bonn, and were you a student of Vera Schussel's?
I was. Yes, I did my bachelor's with her. My thesis.
Oh, you did. Okay. I haven't heard from her in a long time. I think she's busy raising a child or two as well. But anyway, if you see her, tell her I said hello. I haven't seen her in quite some time. And then you went along. So you're working along there. You're raising. You got a young son, and you're trying to go to school, which has got to be a lot to juggle around. And then you have a job, and actually a job. And how did it go on? How did all that your job and everything, all that stuff come together?
Well, again, like I had to sort of figure out a way of, living here, raising my son, and then also continue studying and, getting a career done, which was definitely challenging. But I had a lot of support as well from family and from friends. And now that, just because you mentioned Vera in her lab, she knows my son when he was small. I was doing behavioral studies in the basement of a castle, because the castle in Bonn, in the basement, that's where Vera was doing the experiment on shark behavior. So I would bring my son down there, and he would feed the sharks when they were rewarded for doing like a behavioral, one of the cognitive tasks you were giving them. So she saw him grow up there.
Okay.
And the master's was, again, just to continue as well working, continue finishing the career. And during the master's, I got an internship at the UN and the Sharks NYU that I could use as credit points for my career as well.
Oh, nice.
For the university. And that kind of got me into the... I'm starting to get lost here. That kind of got me again into like getting the consultancy I got later on at the UN. But before that, I did my master's thesis, which is when I went to live to the Canary Islands, and that's where the Angel Shark project started.
Okay. Oh, and so part of your master's thesis,
it's a bit.
was it part of your master's thesis on angel sharks then?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, so the internship at the UN, when I was there, was like a 6 months internship. I was planning where to do my master's thesis. And my plan was to go back to Galapagos and continue, of go back there and take the family there. But that was a bit challenging. So I thought maybe let's find something in Europe that could be maybe easier. And I looked at what was going on, and, a lot of projects were with the more charismatic, which I'm not really saying that it's the most charismatic, but it was a lot of research on white sharks, on manta rays, on those species that you've heard of at that moment a bit more. And angel sharks came up as one of the most threatened species, families. And one of the papers, I can't remember which one it was at that point. And so I started looking into angel sharks and where they were, and I heard that they were in Europe, and I saw that they were in the Canary Islands, and that kind of made me reach out to people in the Canary Islands and see, is there anything I could do? I would like to work on these sharks, which again, I had never seen before.
Right.
But, I thought it was interesting. They're endangered. Nobody is working with them. It gets me out of Germany into living into another place as well. So yeah, let's go for that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah. What kind of study did you do when you're out on what was your first study on angel sharks for your thesis?
Well, because there was nothing known at that point, except they are extirpated from all over the place, and they're only left in the Canary Islands. And in the Canary Islands, there was a lot of scuba divers that were seeing them. So I started reaching out to the scuba divers and to the university that had a platform to report marine life people were seeing in the ocean when they were doing any snorkeling or diving activities. And they inserted a section for me for angel sharks. So any information that divers were getting from angel sharks was reported into that database. And I thought it would sound fancier and people would collect, be a bit more involved if I make it a project. So I was like, okay, what do? I brainstormed at home, and we're like, oh, let's call it just Angel Shark Project. Yeah, let's make that a project. So it sounds more official. And that's how Angel Shark Project was created, actually, initially, which wasn't what it is now. I got a grant as well from Save Our Seas.
Oh yeah.
To kick off some work there, and it was about collecting data, so where they are, where they're seeing them, and do a distribution model of where they are around in the Canary Islands and where they potentially could be found as well. And that was kind of the start, and that was also the master's, the thesis that I ended up submitting.
Okay, and then from that sort of start, you kind of this whole thing sort of blossomed into a whole network now, because you have quite a bit going on with the angel sharks. Can you expand a little bit how that all came about?
Sure. So so after that, or actually during that thesis time, I also met Joe Barker, who is the co-founder also of Angel Shark Project, as it is now. ZSL was also interested in angel sharks, and we then decided to have like a more bigger, proper project, like a more collaborative project, team up with various institutions, the University in Las Palmas, ZSL, and then my institute in Germany, and really establish that project, put in some funding applications, and start growing from there. And the way that we did that was just like getting so we started working at different levels, because of there's more funding coming in and more collaboration starting enabled us to do much more work, so I could continue doing the research, but we also wanted to use all that research for conservation and actually make something out of that data. So we got in touch with the IUCN Shark Specialist Group, and at that time Nick Dalby was the chair, and he was very interested as well in angel sharks. So he and Shark Trust as well were also very interested in angel sharks. They came over to the Canary Islands, and Submon as well from Spain. And we then organized a workshop to develop an action plan, a 10-year action plan on gathering all the data that we had so far and getting a set of actions for the government. We invited fishers, we invited representatives from the diving community, from the government, everyone together for a few days on a workshop, and develop this action plan on how can we make sure that at that point, what we thought was the last population of angel sharks can still be safeguarded and protected in the Canaries. And the thing is that after that, it kind of rolled out a whole interest in angel sharks, and they started appearing also in other places where we thought that they weren't there anymore. So in Wales, for example, they started reporting angel sharks. The sightings map that we established, we started seeing people reporting these sightings in different places, also in the Mediterranean. So kind of the whole thing grew super organically into we're getting more sightings, more people interested, more information. And we then thought, okay, all of these people, we want to work with them, but we don't have the capacity to work. We want the project to grow, but hey, we're just 3 people. Like, how do we manage this? And we thought, okay, let's, the Manta Trust was a great inspiration as well in the way that they set up their projects, not leading everything, so that not everything is led by a number of people, but actually having leads in the different countries and establishing collaborations and partnerships all over the place. And that's kind of the idea that we then thought, hey, we could do Angel Share project everywhere and transfer knowledge, share experience, have all these regional projects with regional project leaders leading their part, but then exchanging that information with us and connecting all that information towards one common purpose. And that's how suddenly the project started expanding. We got more funding, we got more collaborations established, we developed a global strategy for a few species, and then a more regional strategy for the Mediterranean, and then started working on different levels of legislation, research. So it just exploded somehow.
How long did that take to explode like that?
Well, I don't know, but this year is our 10-year anniversary of Angel Share project. So 10 years ago, I went to the Canaries and this thing started. And it has taken, I don't know, it's hard to say because we've never really tracked it or planned it. It just happened. I think the last 3 to 5 years have been the years where we've been most, more established, where we had to rethink a few things, where we've had most funding coming in. At the beginning, we all struggled a lot.
Right, of course.
We had day jobs as well, so not everybody has been always paid full time. I worked for the UN as well as a consultant while doing this other work. I moved away from the Canaries.
Yeah.
We hired a few people that were then full time or part time. We have had people that were teachers part time and then the other time working on the project. So it was a bit of a struggle, but a lot of motivation and a lot of people wanting to do things. And yeah, I guess essentially the greatest part of everything was just this big collaboration of all these different people and organizations and countries working together and sharing and supporting each other, making this whole thing actually grow into a network.
Yeah, and it's amazing too. But when you talk about growing this network from its inception, so from the beginning, where it's just a couple of people, and then with this grand idea, and then it builds and builds and builds while doing consultancies, while doing other jobs and things like that, it really takes dedication and focus to be like, no, we're not going to let this idea go. Right? How hard sometimes was that for yourself and then maybe other people who contributed to that growth to ensure like you stay with it? Because it's hard. Like you said, you don't always have funding for it, especially at the beginning. Now it's a little easier because there's probably more people involved, more regions, more opportunities for funding. But at that beginning stage, that must have been quite tough. Like, look, you have a family, you have, you have these consultancies, you were doing school, like, how hard was it to continue to focus on that? Because I know there's a lot of people in our audience who are trying to get these projects off the ground. What would you attribute that success to be? Like, how hard was it to focus, and what do you attribute that success to be?
But I can tell you it was really hard. I mean, we've had breakdowns, we've had like crying about it. I've thought, 1,000 times just to drop it and just let it go. And I have let go. And I think actually letting go is also part of the whole process. When I had to prioritize my family or my, paying bills at home, I reduced my time in the project and I had to let go my baby to someone else to step up and, take over and trust that person. I think it's also a matter of trust and letting go. And if you don't trust and don't let go, and I'm saying this as if I was like the super guru of trust and let go. I struggle with it a lot. It is a big struggle.
It's not easy. Yeah.
No, but I had to. Otherwise, I would have collapsed as well. And I had to get another job. And some of my colleagues had the same situation. And this whole, let's trust that someone else is able to do and pick this up and not take away anything from you, but actually make it something, either keep it going or make something different out of it. That was a big challenge, but also a big opportunity. And I think we all slowly understood that was the only way of keeping this project going. To let go, to be creative, to trust in your colleagues, and to build collaborations. We couldn't handle everything, so there had to be more there. And we have a huge network of volunteers as well that have supported the work of the project. So I mean, we've had years like COVID, for example, where we had 1.5 years, everything was closed. We had our deliverables. Some funders were understanding that some work did have to continue as well at some point. So my travel, for example, was limited, but the few people that were on site in the Canaries and the volunteers, they were the one pretty much going there in the field and doing all the work for us being outside, for example.
Yeah.
So it has taken a few, I'm starting to get a bit of gray hair here too.
Well, it happens to everybody at some point in time, but you look great.
Yeah,
So.
I'm just looking right here. Yeah.
I was hoping it would just take me a bit more time, but it's actually coming out. So, and the funding thing is also it's been really difficult. So, working alongside doing all of this, it does take you a lot of passion, which we all have. Otherwise, you don't do it.
Yeah.
You do this in your after hours. While I was working at the UN, I would take my annual leave to go and do field work. And then had to balance that out with my family being very happy me going away again for work during our time. So I tried to combine it and take them with me.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
And then, or working in the evenings or weekends. So it does take
your son,
time and effort.
Your son must be getting a great experience following mom all over the place, going to the Canaries and all these Portugal and all this stuff. He must probably, like you when you were young, getting a very worldly view of things, going all these places. That must be kind of fun too, just being able to show him a lot of this stuff that you're doing.
It is. It's nice. He's recently joined us in one of the campaigns as well, and got finally, because he's 13, he could get his diving certification.
Nice.
So
wow.
He's been with us in the field a few times already, catching, well, not catching because he's not allowed, but at least helping out in whatever he can while we were doing the tagging surveys.
Oh, that's great.
But I think he is more of the sedentary one. He actually likes but I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Only 13. He's still got lots of time to go back and forth. I get it. Yeah.
Well, after the last campaign, he did say, I thought I've decided maybe I'll just take your job when you're done. It's like, okay, why not?
It sounds easy. Maybe I'll just do that, right?
Yeah. So he used to tell his teachers, when they were asking, what do your parents do? And at that time, my partner worked at the rock climbing gym. So he's like, my dad, he climbs, and my mom, he climbs and surfs, and my mom, she is with sharks in the water. Like, Jesus Christ, they must think we're like the complete weirdos.
I think that's pretty cool. I'm sure I'm sure a lot of people think, oh, you got the greatest parents ever. Like surfs and rock climbs and swims with sharks. That's probably, maybe that gets them a little more popular with the kids.
Yeah,
maybe with the kids, but the teachers do have, I was a mother very young, and so they do sometimes look at you like, oh, very young, and then she does this whatever nonsense thing. But
maybe you sound more like an influencer than a scientist, right?
Terrible. Please no.
The hippie mom sounds like that. Showing up. So as you grow up, how big is your the network? How big is it? Is it pretty much global now? Your Angel Shark network, is it pretty much reach everywhere?
Yes, now it is. So the thing is that we have on one side the Angel Shark project, which are more of these projects in the different countries with the different partners and like a set of objectives, let's say, for those regions. And then we established the Angel Shark Conservation Network, which basically is this again was first based in Europe, but then we thought, hey, let's expand it to all the species and be open about it and just be a network. Nobody has to have a specific project or anything, but if people are working with angel sharks, are interested, or just want to share like this knowledge or become involved, that's how this basically what this network would be doing. And the idea is actually we're now starting to get in touch with people in Brazil, in Argentina, in Ecuador, in Japan. We had something now as well. So we do want to share all this experience and knowledge. We're developing toolkits as well to share our methodologies that we developed, for example, for tagging sharks underwater, how we have done that, which was also a bit of a funny story. The mistakes we've made so that others don't have to make it and things like that, at least from what we've learned.
Nice.
So, yeah. So do you have, what kind of things with all this network going with people now, what have been some of the things you guys have accomplished now that you got this thing going that you feel pretty proud of, think are kind of neat that you've done through your network and through your conservation program?
So one of the biggest, the first big accomplishment out of many little ones was getting angel sharks protected in Spain, which they weren't when we just started. And finally in 2019, they got protected. So now there's a development of a recovery plan going on. And it's pretty big and it's pretty amazing because it's a nice way and a nice case study that we show to other countries of, hey, this is how it can work. You can get this action plan, compile information, have a participatory approach where you get everybody on board, get the species protected, and then a recovery plan out of it. And that in very close collaboration with the government, but also the different stakeholders.
What's involved in that? Like, is it more talking to policymakers and your connections through there and with your network, or is it more through a bit of activism in terms of awareness campaigns and so forth, or a little bit of both? How does that work?
I think it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
But I think the key was actually getting the people in a room and just having like this. I think although we work with animals, a lot of our work is just people, and it so much depends also how you reach people, how you talk to people, how you involve people in everything. And sometimes that I think has more value than putting like a nice campaign or doing some policy lobbying level. When you actually sit down with the people, have a coffee with someone and get everybody in the room and just hear them and ask, not tell them this is what you should be doing, but maybe ask, what is it that you need, what is it that you want, and then giving everybody the chance to contribute into a process. And although it sounds so simple, it's rarely done. Many times we go to a place with an idea, we might be right, but still the way how you get to that idea, you could just start again from the beginning, but have everybody lead to that idea instead of imposing it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, are people, like, our governments, are angel sharks on government radars to protect, or do you have to do a lot of education within the government to be like, hey, this is why these sharks are important. This is why it's important to get these critically endangered or get them.
Nobody knows what angel sharks are normally. So I have tried. I had this one meeting with a few government representatives. I'm not going to tell from where or how, but they were talking about prioritizing shark species into international processes and conventions. And so they were, okay, so which are the next priority species? And then you had, I don't know, hammerheads, or there were a few things chipping in, and then I think that I was an intern, and I was like, maybe what about angel sharks? And and I got some reactions like, what the hell is she talking about? And then also no, they're not sexy enough, they're not interesting enough. So they because they were just not known. There was just nothing known. So getting them on the radar or like noticed wasn't so easy. But somehow now, if you do, I feel like now people are looking for something new, different as well. So it's a great momentum for those lesser known, more ambiguous or species or something that's not so popular, or like not the classical species.
Lost
So
sharks,
it's a
what
good
you're talking about,
momentum.
right?
Yeah.
I am actually. It is a good moment for that, and
Yeah,
especially if
absolutely.
they're threatened. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a good time to put these up, push these forward. We're just in Uzbekistan at the CMS COP as well,
Yep.
where the Angel Shark Action Plan for the Mediterranean was adopted, which was
Nice.
fantastic as well. And people were asking me, so how the hell did you get angel sharks
Yeah.
to the COP agenda? Well, I have no idea, but
Connections.
Yeah.
not really connections. I think it's the timing as well. It's
Mm.
understanding the processes as well, but also, the timing and maybe the implications these things could have on other, on fisheries or on. We've been not selling, but we've been promoting angel shark work also as a success story, where
Yeah.
countries, especially the governments, can do something good for a species where there might be not much trade.
Right.
The populations are super depleted. There's an opportunity for ecotourism. So there are lots of opportunities and stories to tell with angel sharks. And we don't have to name and blame and shame all the time and say, oh, fisheries is a killing and the sharks
Right.
they're also not evil in
Yeah.
people's views.
Yeah.
They're not causing that many issues, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use them as a nice story on how nice conservation work can also happen, and success stories can come out of that. And I think that catches a lot of people and governments as well, because they're like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe we can invest in this. It won't cost us too much. We may have to adjust here a little bit, there a little
Yeah.
bit, fishing gear and so on, but we don't have to close down a whole industry or something.
Right.
And we can actually support an industry, which is, for example, the diving industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also a key element, also sharing those
Yeah.
success stories and maybe using that side, that angle as
Yeah.
well.
I think
It's
you
low
said,
hanging fruit for government, which is nice.
Yeah, I think you said a key thing there, even that is something I try to bring up is when you have a success story, I think it's important you highlight it to people, because I think the public gets tired of hearing all the negative about everything. Everything's doom and gloom. But if you can highlight some stuff like, hey, this was taking place and this was a success story, then people feel like there's some hope out there that something you can do something that can make a difference. And I just think there's too much, particularly in the conservation community, there's just too much focus on the negative stuff, and there's not enough highlighting like we did something good, so people feel encouraged to want to pursue something, because otherwise you just feel like why bother, because everything's going to be a disaster, it's not going to work. And I think that's really important what you just stated there about making sure that you highlight these success stories. And angel sharks are in some areas a good story.
I agree. I mean, we had Spain, for example, because they've been so closely involved in this whole process. And we hosted the side event during the COP, and we had a representative from the ministry also explaining the work that they're doing. And a lot of blame always goes to governments. They're not doing this, they're not implementing this is not happening, which, okay, fair enough. It might be true in some cases, but, a government is big. There are many ministries as well. You have to first know where to put if you want to blame, where to put the blame, or where to see where things need improvement. But there's a lot of good stuff also happening, and I agree, this good stuff happening is not being communicated properly, and that leads to believing many times as well that there's no implementation, there's nothing happening. And then the other thing is sometimes governments also don't know exactly what to do. They want to do something, they have the resources, they have the willingness to do something, but there's no communication with the people telling them, okay, prioritize this, do this, we can help you, find a way of implementing this. And the work for angel sharks has, like, this relationship we have, for example, in Spain with the government, has led to different conversations as well. So let's have a look at marine protected areas. Let's have a look at other elasmorang species. What else can we do? Can we connect with other researchers? So this whole thing can also be due to that connection between the whole science and the whole policy world still not being very well connected. And I think that's a little bit also what we are trying to do with this project, build this bridge and build this connection, so that really the data that we're gathering, which is purely always prioritized by how useful it will be for conservation.
One of the things I know in it was just hard with the angel sharks is that because they all look alike, and I know you guys have put out a you put out a guide here that's, I think, a very useful guide that we'll definitely post when we post this show here for people to download, because anyone's familiar with angel sharks, it's like to most people, they look the same to everyone, and you really have to, there's certain characters you have to look at. Did you, when you first started looking at that, what was your sort of, your moment when you started realizing that all these angel sharks sort of look alike, and how do you tell them apart? Did you have any sort of moment you're going like, oh my God, what am I doing?
I still have issues with it. I still like struggle with it when people send me pictures, and I'm like, damn it, I have no idea. So, pretend to be. I still have to look through, images and pictures. We had a moment in the Canaries where they were like, oh, I think that there's more than one species. And we're like, oh, damn it, now. How would we tell, right? It's genetics, of course. We're looking into that. We have looked into that too, but you get to a place, and then many times they just take you as the expert straight away. Angel sharks was the same. I'd never seen angel sharks before I, went into the water diving with them. I mean, even then I didn't see them because they were buried in the sand. So I also didn't make a very good impression there. Looking for, diving over them. I'm like, I don't see anything. But it's hard. I mean, it's hard, and I can understand all the misidentification and these guides. I think they're helpful. There are a few features that you can look at that can help you. But many times in our projects in the Med, there's like oculata and aculeata, and many times, even though they are in principle on the illustrations easy to distinguish, when you see them dead somewhere landed, it's so hard to tell them apart. And I don't know. I'm very, very, I don't mind saying I don't know. I'm unsure.
Yeah.
Because that's many times just the way it is. I don't know.
I don't know if you've had this. I don't know, because there's at least three species that occur around the Mediterranean in that area. And I don't know, is it just the one in the Canaries, or do you get two or three out at the Canaries species out there?
Just one so
just
far.
The one, yeah.
Yes, just one. Yeah.
And an interesting experience. I don't know if you've encountered this, but early in my career, when I was a grad student, I was in Taiwan, and they catch 4 species of angel sharks there. And the only reason I initially got onto it was the fishermen know the species, and they would sort them at the dock by species, and because they get different values for different angel sharks, which was strange to me, because they just, they're kind of flat, and they sort of, have an angel shark look to them. But the fishermen, and they just would sort them out like no big deal. And I'm sitting there trying to look at all these characters. Have you ever had a similar experience that where you've had multiple species where the fishermen like, oh yeah, no problem, those sort them out? Have you ever encountered anything like that?
Me personally, I haven't. I'm sure that Sarah must have had that in Libya. She has she has the 3 species occurring there. I could ask her about that. The only thing I've had is while I was in Ecuador on the coast, they were also landing many angel sharks, and I've been looking through my old photos, and I actually should look into the piles. Maybe they've been piled up actually differently. But there's possibly also co-occurring species there. So, but personally, no. I've only ever seen one species live.
Yeah.
The others have been dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sadly,
seeing them alive is also a big difference.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the only one I've ever seen alive is a Californica out here we get here, but most of the other ones I typically have seen, they're usually dead on a dock someplace or fishermen landing. I don't think I've seen any of the other ones actually diving. And some of the species occur kind of deep, and you really don't see them diving just because they generally occur beyond where you can dive. But as you mentioned, when you're diving, unless you stumble on them, they can bury in the sand. You can just swim over like 10 of them and not even notice them, unless your kind of eyes sort of tune into them, or one moves or something.
It's one of the
Yeah,
things we actually do when people come to us in the Canaries and they're new and they've never seen angel sharks before. And we take them diving and we go down and we show them something in the sand. And we're like, yeah, that's an angel shark. And they're like, oh my God, we're just showing sand. We don't really show them for real. So that's one of the little pranks we do sometimes.
So just be careful if you go diving with them. Just, you never know if it's going to be real or not.
Yeah.
I like that. That's funny.
Is it much of an ecotourism? Is it an ecotourism thing out in the Canaries now for people to go diving with them?
Yeah.
And see them? It is, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It's amazing. Like most of the dive centers use angel sharks in their logo as well.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So when we got there, when I got there 10 years ago, there were a few dive centers that knew about angel sharks. I mean, definitely they were seeing them, but they didn't know how endangered they are. And how special they are. And this is another really nice thing, that over the years they've become this very emblematic species, and it's really now one of the people are very proud of them. People promote this diving with angel sharks because it's a very, very unique place to go. It's very easy to see them if you know how to look for them. And if you're not with us showing you sand, you would normally really see them easily.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. And to be honest, there was a bit of a resistance against us tagging them as well at the beginning.
Oh, really?
People didn't want to see them get hurt. Is that it?
Exactly. Yeah. People were getting very protective, which is actually it's a nice thing, but it also took us some work convincing that diving community that what we were doing was also something positive for the conservation, and it wasn't necessarily like we went through a very rigorous process of developing a methodology on how to tag them underwater without fishing them. So
I say now they even have. Yeah, I was gonna say now you even have like now a International Angel Shark Day. Can you tell us how that all came about?
Well, you have an international day for everything, so we're like, let's do one for angel sharks as well. Why not? And it's actually on the birthday of one of our colleagues, David. So,
really?
Yeah, he's the lucky one.
Okay.
He was also really happy about the Squatina David. By the way, he teases us for that all the time. Yeah, thinks he's special now.
Yeah, and that was and what day is that now? When can people?
26th of June.
26th of June is International Angel Shark Day. We'll definitely try. I need to get a list of like where all these different days are, because I see them like they pop up, like I guess Sunday was yesterday was International Wildlife Day. I never even know until like I'll see it on social media sometime in the day. Like
there's so many. Like she said, there's a day for everything. There's a day for everything.
There's a day for everything, and that's why we thought, hey, let's just invent a day ourselves as well. And it's a nice way because we then invite everybody to like post their project, showcase the work again, and to go back to this whole communicating success stories as well.
Right.
No,
well, that's how International Ghost Shark Day started. I just posted one year # International Ghost Shark Day, and now it's a regular event. And so it's kind of, so you can start your own hashtag, whatever favorite shark day or whatever you want to, just pick something out and post some pretty pictures.
Call it.
There it goes. So where do you see your now you've got international your International Angel Shark Day, you've got all this stuff. Where do you see yourself going now as far as with the Angel Shark program and sort of your career trajectory?
The project or myself?
Both.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. So the project, I think I see it growing to other places as well. So other countries, other species, perhaps. And we're now also integrating a lot of the information that we've gathered for angel sharks for other species as well. So replicating the same things we've done for angel sharks have been with, like David is doing this now with his team for butterfly rays. So pretty much sharing all that knowledge and replicating it for other species, but also other angel shark species. And then we're also integrating the information that we have And we've integrated it into the ISRA process, identifying important shark and ray areas, and using that to identify perhaps marine protected areas in the places where we've been working, or expanding those areas, or implementing any measures. So there is, on that level, a lot of work still to be done, which is quite nice. Broadening it up a bit. And for myself, I don't know, because I quit my UN job 9 months ago to move full-time angel sharks, which is a bit of a risk. Yeah, but it's a bit of a risk too, because project posts go, and funding runs out, so funding needs to come in again. So my plan is to continue, putting in funding applications and continue moving at the moment in that angel shark world. But I am also open for other things, and I have been, and I think that's been key, being open to, I've worked with birds.
We didn't even talk about your bird. We didn't even talk about your bird stuff. We'll have you on another show to talk about the birds.
We'll talk about the birds for sure.
No, well, it's been great, because it's been just, I've learned so much from birds as well, and from that world. I'm so amazed by the fact that in the bird world, scientists complain a lot about, we don't have data for this, we don't have data for this, and I always have to laugh, and I always have to say, like, what do you mean you don't have the data? You've got so much data compared to what you have in the marine world. So many networks, so many volunteers, so structured, so coordinated. You've got whole flyways all worked out. You have names for every single bird out there. It's amazing what you have there. And there's a lot to learn, because there are a lot of things you can see, okay, this is where you could potentially get if you apply the same thing and maybe put another 10 years of research and funds into the work you're doing on sharks, and reach something similar. So there's lots of crossovers there.
Yeah. What finally here, a question we like to always ask everybody is, like, what advice would you have for a young person starting out that was interested to do in sharks or something? Do you have any sort of wisdom or advice you could give to someone?
Yeah, I guess obviously being persistent, and being very open for, just being open for, honestly, just be open for new challenges, and don't put your mind only on one thing. If there are new things coming up, it's a matter of what you do with those things coming up. You can plan your career. Let's say I want to become a shark scientist, and I'm going to plan my career here. Most likely this is not going to happen. You might have to do like 1 or 2 deviations, and don't be scared of doing those deviations, because they can get you to other places, and you can learn a lot from those deviations as well, and make the best out of it. And I guess also, even if you're confronted, I've had many setbacks, like so many, and I've had many situations that didn't turn out the way I wanted. I couldn't live in the country I wanted. I couldn't study the species I initially wanted, and thank God I did not.
Right.
A lot of things have happened that how many funding applications that didn't go well, how many people told me no, one of them telling me, your project or your idea is too ambitious, it's not going to work. So a lot of these things that put you down or in your path, but if you just, get over them and just learn from them and use them maybe as a motivation, and maybe take a little detour. And maybe, my PhD supervisor, he's a herpetologist. He's not a shark scientist. He's got no clue about sharks, but he's a nice person. He's a good person. He's got great skills, and he's been supporting me since the start. So I'd rather be with him, who maybe in the shark world is not a known person, but he is a good person and a great scientist. So maybe take those detours, and you can still go and find your way and work with sharks. There's so many.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Great. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Eva, for taking the time today to talk with us. And it was great. It was nice hearing about some of these lesser known sharks, angel sharks especially. It's been a great interview having you talk with us, and wish you all the best. And we'll definitely have to have you come back on the show, talk more about water birds and other things as well in the future. So
thank you so much for having me, and you're more than welcome to come and see our angel sharks as well whenever you want.
I'd like to do
Absolutely.
that.
We're gonna have to do a tour for Beyond Jaws, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
Yes,
there we go.
visit all the
A
people
world
you've interviewed.
Yes.
Yes.
Where are they now?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Eva. We appreciate it.
Thank you.